And we're live from the northern campus of Homewood Flossmoor. We have the HF Vikings taking on the Lincoln Way East Griffins, and for tonight a nice gymnastics matchup. We're starting in with JV. They've already gone through a couple of their performances, but we're going to see varsity, and we're going to see a lot of great things. Michaela, what do you have to take on tonight's match?
I think we're off to a strong start.
Yeah, after a strong start, looking at some of the performances right now, obviously we've seen a large range of scores. We're seeing some people on the uneven beams, and they're also seeing some people on the vault. And looking at some of the landings, I think there's definitely some improvement that can be done with the landings, right? Because we're looking at the speed. I think the speed is very consistent. It's very good. And then when they try to push off, I think the push off is great. But then the landing portion, right, they need to do a better job of keeping their legs parallel. They're keeping, I guess, more fluidity through the entire process. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. The coaches seem to be looking like there's room for improvement, but not disappointed. There seems to be a lot of room for improvement on uneven bars, but a lot of encouragement from teammates.
Yeah, I feel like that happens with a lot of sports kind of competitions. We kind of see a lot of people go on heavy on the motivation, heavy on the hugs, just kind of really keeping that high energy.
Absolutely.
Because in some of these sports, right, it's a lot of individualized, right? It's not like soccer or it's not like basketball where you're kind of playing as a team and everyone kind of works together. But with these individualized kind of things, it's kind of a mental game, right? And once your teammates can help you kind of push through those mental hurdles or these kind of obstacles within yourself, you kind of can excel and reach, I guess, your maximum potential.
Absolutely.
And, my favorite thing with gymnastics is going to be the floor performance, right? I want to see how can you really show the art of the floor, right? A Picasso, a Michelangelo, a Van Gogh.
Floor
right?
is where you get to be very creative.
Of course, and that's where, you can really sell yourself there, right? Because with some of these other performances, right, there's very limited, I guess, results that can eventually happen, right, with the vault, right? It's all about the run, about the flip, and about the landing, right?
There's a lot of technicality in every other part, but then when you get to floor, you get to be very creative and include some dance in it.
Yeah, I want to see a masterpiece, right? I want to see something that can go down to history, right? Go into the museum, right? I need to see that's going to go into the an exhibit, be like looking back, like this happened here. You know what I mean?
Actually, with uneven bars, there's a lot of times where people would get more creative, but they ended up being too dangerous to be allowed in a lot of competitions.
Yeah, injury is a big thing too, right? You always want to put all your heart into it. But, man, an injury can really derail your season and just derail the confidence of not just you, but the rest of the team, right? Because the rest of the team kind of has that sympathy or that empathetic feelings because they want you to do well, right?
That was a solid landing by the Vikings on the vault.
Yeah, also looking at the JV team right now with the Vikings, they have a ton of seniors, almost the whole kind of laid down to seniors. I think it's senior nights they kind of have that kind of filled out. But then on varsity, right, the only senior that's kind of going through the performances is Leslie Dean, while everyone else is, juniors, sophomores, or potentially even freshmen.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got to think about that youth? What's the importance of having youth on a team, right? What's the importance of having youth on a team, right? Having kind of that potential, having the potential to kind of grow, right? Don't you think that is an important factor,
Absolutely.
Important thing to see?
And learn from the older members on the team. I think the easiest way to learn is by watching and being on a team with people who are more experienced.
Yeah, experience, I think, experience does, I think, play a huge factor into this, but sometimes youth does help something, right? You kind of are a new phase, you have that new energy, and with it being kind of your first or second year sometimes, you kind of have more of that kind of excitement coming in, right? Once you get kind of your last year, right, you've gone through it, right? Sometimes you're going to be more stone-faced, you're going to be stone-cold, you're going to go through it, and it's not going to sometimes have as much energy, right? But obviously, it changes from player to player, from gymnast to gymnast, right? They kind of have a different mentality. Some always going to come with the same mentality, go in, go out, right? They're not going to try anything special, they're not going to do anything good, they're going to get the points and that's it. But some, they're going to come with high energy, smiles, clapping, running around, and putting everything out on the floor, right? So, right now we have Jordan now on the vault. Right, you always want to stick the landing, right? You want to make sure you have the hand placements, right? Having that balance. Balance is a very key factor, right? You don't want to have chicken wings, right? You don't want to kind of have your arms flaying around. You want to have to keep composure and smile, right? What do they always tell you? Smile, right? Even if everything's going bad, go into smiles. But, yeah, it's something you always want to see, but I always am looking for nice like it's like poetry. When I see gymnastics as poetry, right? Soothing, right? It's kind of like ballet, right? You kind of have like Cherry Tops. You know what was always like song the Nutcracker, right? Like it's just very something nice to see. Don't you agree?
I think the biggest part of gymnastics, honestly, is just the mental part of it. Obviously, there's a big physical component, but the ability to stay composed when you know that, a mess up could mean an injury, could mean that you don't stick it, it could mean a lot, So a big part of it is mental, and you can see that on a lot of the girls' faces as they go up, that they're just mentally preparing.
Mental is one, but I'm just saying, if this is just my take. If I had a manifesto, right, if I was the president of the Gymnastics Association, I think it would actually be good to, I know safety reasons might prevent this, but playing music, right, whether that be on the speakers or having earbuds, right. It's like classical music, right? It gives you the sensation of peacefulness, right? You're walking across the lakefront, right? Sunsets, sunrise, right? You just got to get into that movement and boom, 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 Picasso, isn't it? Don't you agree?
Yeah, I see.
Would you vote for that policy? I think that's a good policy.
Do you think it would mess them up a little bit? They're not as focused.
No, because there's studies done, going from the psychological impact, right? If you look at classical music, right, it helps you with this thinking, right? It helps you stay focused through it, right? If you look at it, these nights, right, we have somebody on the vault, we have somebody on the beam, right? And there's two things happening simultaneously, right? And some people, say you're running, and boom, there's a quick noise, and messes up your whole thing. But if you're playing music in your ears, right, boom, all music, and it's consistency. Right, it's consistent sounds, consistent environment, right? When you have kind of those distracting factors, boom, a clap, boom, a scream, boom, you messed up and you fell and you broke your leg. Unfortunate, right? But that's something you don't want to see, but that can happen in sports.
Well, that's
right?
all a part of the mental preparation and being focused.
Yeah, I'm just saying I would like music. I mean, I also like music, so I can't go hard against it. Mm-hmm. But we're starting off kind of more peaceful. Later on, we're going to have more, I want to say rambunctious. Rambunctious is a bit extreme. But I'll keep going on. But looking at some of the scores, right, there's been a lot in the 7s and 8s, right? I want to see some 9s coming in, right? But I think that kind of once we see more, right, we have an 8-6-5 on the beam over here on the beam, and that kind of is, a higher score because some scores definitely have been in the low 7s. What is your take on that?
I believe we were at an 8-4 for Jordan Elam on the vault. And it was a really solid landing, really solid performance in general.
Yeah, because the landing is literally the most important thing, right? Because kind of this whole kind of psychological effect, right? The recency effect, right? Whatever happens last stays in our minds, right? Sometimes with a song, the beginning and the end. Yes, the middle does mean a lot, but people don't have that lasting impact. How did you land? How did you finish?
Especially for vault, the biggest point is your landing. There's not much you can mess up on besides maybe placement on the actual vault.
Yeah, with the beam, right, the balance beam, and with the floor performance, right? That's more of a kind of overall kind of standpoint. But with
you have a little more room to mess up on those events, whereas vault, it's kind of all or nothing.
That is true, all or nothing, and it's also one of those things where it can be the most risky sometimes, right? You can think everything's going great, but then one wrong kind of turn or one wrong angle can mess up your night.
Absolutely.
But it looks like HF and the Lincoln Way East Griffins are kind of getting all set. Then now everyone's back up on their feet and getting ready to kind of talk over, and get energy back up to start the performances on the beam, the vault, and the floor. So we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Viking Television for Viking Gymnastics.
Pioneering forward to a new future. At Prairie State College, you're empowered to face challenges head-on and become the best you. The future is closer than you think. Start near. Go far. Prairie State College.
The village of Flossmoor is somewhere where you can feel attached and welcome in something very special. The heart and soul of a small town steeped in history and energized by diversity and inclusiveness in all its forms. Flossmoor is where you want to be.
Welcome to Glow Salon and Spa, where we can make all of your beauty needs come true. We have it all, from hair to nails and so much more. Book on our website, call into our store, or come into our location. Glow Salon and Spa, your new home for all things beauty.
a free roof? Ask us how. Veteran-owned company specializing in wind and hail insurance claims. We work directly with your insurance company to minimize your stress and to maximize your claim.
And we're back for some more Viking versus Lincoln Way East gymnastics. We're starting off the performances. We're going to see some varsity. Now we're kind of getting into it, right? We're starting off with the unbalanced beam, right? We're starting off, and I think the energy's looking really good. Wouldn't you agree, Michaela?
Absolutely. Everybody looks prepared. They look in it.
Yeah, and these landings, once again, we just looked at Lincoln Way East on the right. We just saw their landing looking pretty good. You know, everybody's cheering for them. And, you know, the landing, as we're saying, I think that's really going to boil down. Like, who's going to come out on top with this meet? It's going to be who's able to finish off strong, finish off good, but also finish, you know, come out with swing power, setting the momentum down, right? What do you got to take right now on who's on the beam? So, you know, it's really a different thing, right? The beam, right? What do you think about the beam as a whole, the whole performance, the whole act, the bars, right? The bars, how do you think about the bars?
Bars are difficult. Bars are really difficult. And I think, especially for JV, a lot of it is those basic skills, a lot of the basic form, keeping those toes pointed, keeping the feet together, and getting some power through those swings. And it's looking like varsity or JV is really getting a hold on that.
Yeah, looking at the last score for JV, I believe it was a 150. That look, considering the other scores, I think that's a pretty low score, right? I think there might have been maybe a miscommunication or a act in that performance. But obviously, you know, it happens. Things happen, right? Everyone makes mistakes, but it's about getting right on the right foot.
Absolutely.
But, you know, I'm excited, right? You got to keep the high energy, right? You know, they have energy. Why can't we have energy, right?
Absolutely. One thing I will say, when Lincoln Way East came in, the first thing was they were loud. They were cheering for everything. As they were practicing, they're cheering for each other. They're cheering each other on. And when we were on vault, we were cheering each other on. We were keeping that energy high and encouraging it.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's an intimidation factor, right? Hey, we're gonna come into your house and we're gonna be a dog, right? We're gonna start barking's a little bit much, but still, you understand the imagery, right? You're coming in and you're setting the tone down, right? You're saying, all right, this might be your school, this might be your home turf, but we're gonna take it from you, right? They're gonna steal it in a sense, and they're gonna create this kind of environment that kind of allow them to feel more comfortable and ready to take over.
Now we have Julie Castanon on the uneven bars, and she's actually a senior. Considering it's senior night, do you think there's a little bit of pressure, a little bit of, or maybe more higher energy?
I mean, in some ways, yeah, but looking at the JV roster, every single person's a JV except for Isabella, right? So everybody's kind of corralling with one another and understanding where they are as a team and understanding where they need to go to ensure a victory for HF. But I think they kind of having, like, look at it like through it all, right? I was here, you know, we were both here before, you know, we started the live stream, before we started the commentating, and before we even started warm-ups, right? They're all together, right? They're setting up, and they're working as a team, moving the mats together, moving the bars together, setting everything up, right? And sometimes with some teams, there's no communication, right? Everyone's silent. But no, they're high energy, they're playing music, they're dancing, right? They're feeling each other, right? They're having a good vibe. Right? Setting the vibe's important, wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
But now it looks like we have Kendall on the bars, right? And it's a good start to see. But I mean, another key thing I want to see, we haven't seen the beam yet, right? But the beam sometimes is very tricky, right? It's a tightrope, right? You know those shows where the guy is on the tightrope, on between two skyscrapers, right? And he has to go across, right? You're high up in the air, and while you're actually not high in the air here, it's still that mental kind of imagery, right, where you're kind of saying you don't want to fall, you don't want to land awkwardly, you don't want to land, you know, right in between the bars, and you don't want to land on one foot and mess up your knee, mess up your ankle, mess up any part of your body.
Absolutely.
But look at the bars now.
We're seeing an impressive performance by Kendall Holmes on the bar so far, keeping those feet together, our toes pointed, and there was a lot of encouragement from the team prior to her starting. She's also another senior.
Yeah, a lot of seniors for the team. I think it's good, right? Giving the veterans a chance.
A slight step back on that landing, but overall pretty solid.
Yeah, pretty solid landing. Also with kind of the consistency with the spins, right? With the flips and making sure you understand your weight, right? Weight is another big thing, right? Understanding, okay, this is where I kind of stand. This is how the gravity of it all is going to play an impact, right? Your speed, your turns, your angles, and your decision making, right? With gymnastics, it's a practice act, right? There's very little that kind of happens because the only thing that can go wrong, or only thing that can happen is for everything to go wrong, right? There's not much that can really change to make it even better, right? It's about coming in and perfecting it all. Looking at the vault, a decent run, but the landing I think could have been better there, right? You kind of want to stand strong, right? You kind of want to be, the green giant on the mushrooms, or you got to be strong and firm, right? Firm is important.
Gotta stick the landing.
Gotta stick the landing. It's like an airplane, right? When you come down, right, everybody's gonna know if you messed up the land.
From a mushroom to an airplane.
Mushrooms and airplane. You gotta connect. That's life, right? You gotta have analogies for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Going back up for the vault, going for spin. See, like that. That's a firm, strong landing. Right, stand strong. Right, this is your area. Right, the mat, you got to land square face. Right, and in some ways it's hard. Right, because you're discombobulated in the air. Right, as humans, right, we're supposed to be standing straight up tall. Right, we're not used to being flipped. Right, our biology, our kind of, systems are not built for it.
It looks like that last run on uneven bars got a score of 6.9.
The 6.9 is really good because we were seeing some 150s, 190s previously on the bars. So pretty good scores by HF. I believe that was for Kendall. So
for Kendall Holmes. Now we have Leslie Dean on Varsity, another senior.
Yeah, it's something you want to see right now. We're kind of getting into the I guess, the best way to describe kind of the stronger people, right?
And now we see the more advanced form, the more advanced technique, going from the shorter bar and the higher bar. And that is where you see more of that perfection in the feet staying together and the feet pointed.
Yeah, the transition, right? Understanding how we kind of have to elevate and get to the next spot, right? Lower bar to higher bar, right? There's a lot of mental games, mental challenges going into it. But like always, you always figure it out. You always perfect it, and it's a system, right? Gymnastics is a system. It's an art. It's Picasso. It's Van Gogh. It's Michelangelo. They knew what they were doing all along, whether they realized it or not. So, wouldn't you agree? It's a masterpiece, if you allow it to be. Right. Looking back at the bars,